I'd like to sort of summarize what we've been discussing about just briefly, if that's okay. This is the nonfiction, the multi-platform nonfiction discussion group. We haven't met with faculty or haven't had our campus-wide meetings yet, but the members of the committee got together and sort of brainstormed some ideas before we're going to have this meeting. And one issue that we discussed was research convergence, so that there are people across the campus who are interested in nonfiction media or storytelling, or from ethnographic research to folklore to history to social advocacy. That's another issue we were discussing, is access and advocacy, which is to say that technology has a connection with both of these in terms of new media technology, systems of delivery, as well as systems of production, which have to do with cost oftentimes. And speaking of journalism, I mean, one of the most striking things that I have seen in the last 20 years was a report from Baghdad from a journalist who had a laptop and a camera and was recording what was going on as the invasion of Iraq began, the shock and awe. And that was made possible by technology. And there are interesting ways of thinking about how you negotiate that, what influence does it have on, as we're talking about, telling stories or delivering information in this broader sense. And then the other aspect that we were talking about was the importance of image making and the study of image making to understand the rhetoric of the image, of contemporary images and image making, and how that has, we've talked about this for years, about a kind of a language that seems to have, and how we get our information. There have been many books and people written about that, from McLuhan to recent folks. Did I leave anything out, Jen?
You're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks. There was a...
And I'm not going to step up to the microphone. I'll
Yeah.
give you a minute to breathe and just add something to
Yeah.
what you're suggesting, which is, it strikes me that journalism practice not only profits from some of the things you all are discussing, but it will die without some of the things you're discussing. It seems to me that if we can connect journalism practice to what Brett was describing as empathetic ethnography, if we can talk about journalism as part of a much broader nonfiction distribution system, where we're dealing, as you suggested, with documentary film, we're dealing with creative nonfiction, literary journalism, etc., that those texts make the study and the practice of journalism stronger and more vital. And I think publics, multiple publics, are demanding that from journalists now. Did that give you time to breathe and think about the next thing?
Yes, the other point the other things we were discussing was the tremendous amount of resources in this area. People, documentary filmmakers. There are Academy Award-winning documentary filmmakers, as well as nominees and Emmy folks, and they all share one thing, which is they're committed to advocacy. In this discussion that we had, from the director of the Cove to a fellow who decided that he wanted to do something about the plight of North Koreans and the refugees going to China, spent his own money creating his own documentary about it. So that's the other thing that we've been discussing, is and the community, the documentary community, is very interested in participating in this process and being involved. So bringing professionals in to have this ongoing discussion with students and faculty.
And just to point out the kind of interdisciplinary connections again, because as Dan is mentioning, Luisa Hoyos, who the documentary, the Academy Award-winning director of The Cove, we work with Louis to develop marketing programs for that film, which they use to push it forward. So as people are developing product in the creative side, those of us in the more business side can help think about ways that we can distribute increased visibility and reach out to others, and ways of doing that, and draw on that experience as well. So I think it's, again, ways we can play together.
I would also add to that, in terms of local resources, there are people who invent things for these kinds of projects, like Wyndham Hanaway and Associates on Pearl Street. It's a shop right over a bicycle shop. It's one of the most technically sophisticated places I've ever seen, and he invented small cameras for that project, specifically for that project for surveillance of the beach where dolphins were being slaughtered.